Let us help you reach your peak in retirement. It's time for Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee.
Welcome into another edition of the podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Sean Lee and myself here on Retirement Elevated as we talk investing, finance, and retirement. And the Secure Act 2.0 just passed through at the very, very end of the year. They're part of that omnibus, crazy big old thing that they passed, that $1.7 trillion. They snuck in the Secure Act 2.0, which they've been kicking around for a while. So Sean and I are going to go over some of the key takeaways and how that might affect folks when it comes to retirement strategizing and dissect that a little bit. We'll probably keep this somewhat higher level, but as more details come out, I'm sure we'll revisit it later on also. But Sean, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Hey, man, just enjoying, still getting a chuckle out of our last podcast that we did.
Yeah, had the boy on with us, which was fun. He's such a little voice.
He's a boy of few words until you
apparently
get him rolling with his buddies.
Yeah, apparently. That was funny. That's what you were saying. He's like, yeah, I can't normally get him to stop talking, but
oh, man.
That time he did. Well, red light syndrome. Everybody gets it.
I remember I still have the recording when I was, I don't know, 8 to 10, around his age. My grandfather back east had a buddy at a radio station he was a DJ at a radio station, and my grandfather took me down there and they put me on the radio, and we still have that little recording, and it's still this little tiny voice, me as a kid. But the funny thing is, like, the interview went about the same, and it migrated back to baseball. Yeah, because that's all I wanted to talk about.
Right. Yeah, which we thought he would a little bit more than he did. He did somewhat, but yeah. But it's all good. It was cute. Well, listen, we should probably talk a little financial stuff here on episode 101. And maybe it's Secure Act 101 is the title. Secure Act 2.0 might be the title for this one. They, as I said, they went through, they passed it in that omnibus thing there, and there's a lot of interesting stuff. There's some things that I don't think people saw coming, others that they did. But let's start with the couple of key takeaways there. RMDs was the first one, and that's obviously affects people, right away.
Right. I mean, they changed I don't want to call it a big change for required minimum distributions, but it was a change. And what they did is that they pushed the required minimum distribution age from 72, which it currently is, back an extra year to 73. Now, so if you turn 72 in 2022 or earlier, you need to take the minimum distributions. However,
right, if you've already started, you keep taking them. Right.
But if you turn 72 this year in 2023, you get an extra year of reprieve. You don't have to take them until you actually turn 73.
Yeah, that's the new age, right? 73, kind of moving forward.
Right.
And then they added a caveat.
Which, now as it continues to, you continue to age out, you can basically, in 2033, if you turn 75, or if you're 75 in 2033,
right, that's
your minimum distribution age. But I think there are a couple of bigger points to this than just the age. The first one is they reduced the penalty from 50%.
Yeah, it was the biggest one in pretty much all of the tax code, I believe.
It was huge. Yeah. If you don't take out your $10,000 that you're required, for example, you're penalized $5,000.
Yeah.
Well, they reduced that down to 25%, but they also said that if you submit a corrected tax return, that penalty they'll reduce to 10%.
Which is nice, because, if you had a $10,000 RMD due and something happened and you messed it up and didn't do it or forgot about it or whatever, you owed the 10, you had to pull the 10, right? Plus then you had to owe them 5 and had to pay taxes on all of that.
And pay taxes, so you got 25% of it.
Yeah.
And then with Roth accounts, Roths have always been exempt from minimum distributions with the exception of Roth 401ks.
Right.
That exemption now passes along to 401ks as well from a Roth
to the Roth 401ks. Yeah, so the employer plans, and that starts in 24, I think, right?
Yep.
So now basically if it's a Roth of any kind, there's no RMDs.
No required minimum distributions.
Which is nice.
That's a lot of people, the Roth is being held to, the Roth is like that last line of defense. It's going to pass on to beneficiaries,
right,
and so on.
Well, if you think about that from a standpoint, it gives them the option to collect tax revenue, right?
Right.
So that's, I'm sure, as always, there's going to be some of that in here. Although the RMD thing, I do got to say, that one is interesting because clearly that we need tax money. But by pushing this back, as a planner, do you like the idea that it's going to be 73 for a lot of folks, but then like you and I, we're going to fall into the 75 category? So
Right.
I believe if you're not born in 1960 or later, I think, if I'm not mistaken, basically you won't have to do them until 75. It gives you some more wiggle room, I guess.
Well, it gives you a longer runway to plan.
True.
Especially for those people that are, let's call it, age 60 right now. You now have a 15-year tax runway, so you can strategically plan. We used to call it the golden decade, which was 60 to 70, but now it's 60 to 75. So it's a golden decade and a half. To where you can really strategically decide, do I want to do Roth conversions? Do we want to take out, excess withdrawals from our retirement accounts, push out Social Security? There's a lot more things that you can do from a planning perspective if you're in that longer runway of required minimum distributions.
Yeah. Okay. So again, so just to kind of clarify, if you're basically turning 73 this year or next year or the next couple of years, that's going to be the new age. Is 73 is a new age, but starting in 2033, the age is 75. All right, so let's go to catch-up contributions. They changed something there too.
Yeah. So, well, in 2025, individuals that are over 60 and through the age 63 years, they can make catch-up contributions of up to $10,000. The catch-up amount for people that are over age 50 is currently is $7,500.
Yeah, it's already so if you do your regular, I don't know, let's say it's a 401k, right? What is it, like 22.5?
Yeah,
or something like that. And then if you're over 50, it's basically you could take it up to $30,000, right? So from 50 to 60, that's what we could do for 10 years, which is pretty cool. But now they're adding this extra layer from 60 to 63 to add even more money if you can afford to sock it away, right?
That you can continue to put it away. Yeah. The only caveat is it's income based. So if you earn more than $145,000 in your prior calendar year, all catch-up contributions at age 50 or older will need to be made to a Roth account in after-tax dollars.
Okay.
Which, great, fine.
Right.
I love the tax-free benefit down the road.
Right. Well, and it's so you think about some of these changes already. It's clearly, to me, it does signify that they're saying, hey, I know it's called setting every community up for retirement enhanced, but a lot of these rules are saying the onus is on you people. You've got to start, really planning for retirement, right? There's definitely a lot of move and saving for it. There's other cool things and some interesting things that I think people were kind of surprised about. Let's see where we want to go to. Let's talk about automatic enrollment and automatic plan portability. So that's a new thing where it's just going to be, you're just getting it done, right?
Yeah, I mean, this basically requires businesses who are adopting new plans to automatically enroll their employees that are eligible. And
now you have to opt out.
You have to opt out,
right?
Whether you want to or not. You're automatically going to be have a contribution rate of at least 3%.
Okay.
Now, this gives a couple of years till 2025 because retirement plans providers, plan sponsors, payroll companies, they got to figure it out how they're going to automatically do that.
Right.
Going back from, in our 401k plan, we have automatic increases. So our employees are inside of their 401k every year, their contribution automatically increases by 1%. They have to go in and they have to change that.
Right.
If they don't want that to happen. But I like the automatic enrollment because if people don't see the money from right off the get-go, they don't miss it.
That's right. I mean, and 3%, many times companies, that's usually 3% is where they get the match. A lot of companies are 3, 5, or 6, right? So by doing this automatically, if your company is offering a match, then hey, I think, and again, it's kind of forcing people. Okay, we're going to make you save for your future self, right?
Right.
So I like that. The couple interesting ones here was student loan debt. This was interesting. I think this is a way to tackle some of that, obviously that giant elephant in the room that's been going on the last year or two with conversations about, student debt relief or cancellation. So they added a little wrinkle in there where they can get a match too. So tell me about that. Yes.
I mean, the student loan debt and the 529 plans are actually, I think that they're lost diamonds.
Yeah. And the 529 is a great point to talk about that because that surprised a lot of advisors as well.
I love it. But so when you look at the student loan debt side, if I'm an employee going into a business and my employer has the student loan match, we'll call it, if I'm paying $200 a month to my student loan debt and I can prove that, my employer will match $200 a month into my retirement account.
Right, which is awesome. So basically they're saying, hey, look, okay, you're saying you can't afford to save for retirement and pay your student loan debts. And this is a way they still have the skin in the game, right? So you make the student loan payments, and the company, if they're participating, they'll match. You'll still get a match on that, whatever that amount, that payment was, up to, I'm sure, a certain dollar amount. There's going to be some restrictions, I'm sure.
Right.
But it'll go into an account for them, which I think is great.
It's a way to, I don't love the idea of student loan forgiveness.
Right.
I didn't come from that world.
Right, me too, yeah.
I had some student loans. I paid them off. I earned it, right? Like it was, I respected the fact that I had that debt. But I like that. I do like this because now employees feel like, okay, in so many cases they feel like, well, it's either my debt or my retirement.
Right.
And now they can have both by doing it that way. So I think that helps out. The one thing that we just talked about, the 529 plans is, I think, an awesome change. Yeah, we looked at and a big reason why some people don't use 529 plans. Oh, well, Sean, what happens if my son, daughter, whatever, doesn't go to college, or they don't need the money, or they get a scholarship,
finish, or they get we never use all of it, something, right?
And the only way to get the money out at that point is to take a 10% penalty and then pay taxes on the earnings. Well, what the government's done, and I can't say that I like this enough, but the government said, okay, if you've got a 529 plan, and if after 15 years it hasn't been exhausted, right? So, it's sit there, it's grown, kids are out of school, whatever it may be, those 529 plan assets can be rolled over to a Roth IRA for the beneficiary. So
that's awesome.
I'll use my niece as an example.
Okay.
She's a sophomore in high school. She went through an unfortunate scenario where her dad died, and she's receiving Social Security while living with my mom, who has since adopted her, but that's a long story.
Right.
But they're contributing to a 529 plan. Now, if she doesn't use all that money, and she's making big contributions to that every year, because they're using some of the Social Security money, that she can roll that money over from her 529 into a Roth IRA, but it's subject to the annual Roth contribution limits and an aggregate lifetime limit of $35,000.
And I think they have to have some skin in the game too, because I think they have to have earned income. So I believe that's going to be a caveat there as well. I saw that was talked about, which basically just means they have to have some sort of a job, right?
Yeah, the rollover is treated as a contribution. So with that, they do need to have earned income up to the limit that they could do. So,
but I mean, for a lot of young people, that's a great way to start a retirement account, and without even really thinking about that, right? Like way early, it's like, okay, I went to school, didn't use it all. Boom, we can roll this into an account for me.
No, and it takes some planning. You want to work with somebody and not hit those and not go over those limits. But what a great way that for unused funds to build a future retirement. Because when I look at kids are like, well, I'll just spend all the money at school. Well, if you don't, guess what? Now you've got this nest egg for the future.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that's a fantastic option. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. Again, there's going to probably be more to dissect and go through on that. There was one more I skipped over. I wanted to circle back to it real fast, and that was the Roth accounts, the matching dollars. So like if you're contributing traditionally to a normal, traditional 401, right, and you get the company match, it looks like they now have the option to do that in a Roth account.
Yeah, and that's going to be, I think, employer driven.
Yeah.
I haven't looked into that quite yet. Even for our plan, but you will be able to provide as an employer the opportunity for employees to receive their contributions to a Roth. Now, this is where payroll systems need to be updated and things like that. And then I'm really still a little unsure on the tax status. So,
who's paying? I mean, I would assume the employee is paying the taxes, right? You would probably treat it as just like you would a regular Roth.
Yeah, I would think, and I don't know this for certain quite yet, but I would think that whatever, and we use our plan as an example, the 3% that we give will end up being some sort of net percentage that gets deposited in, because then the employee pays the taxes on it.
Right.
So we give 3, but maybe they only get 2.6 or 2.7 into the
that makes
account.
sense, yeah. And I think that one doesn't kick in until 2024 as well. So
Right.
Yeah. So they did a lot of stuff. They moved some things around. Obviously, the big takeaways from retirement planning strategy is going to be the RMD ages. It's going to be some of the catch-up contribution abilities. It's going to be some of that planning for parents or grandparents with the 529s. So some good pieces. Overall, Sean, do you think it's a successful piece of legislature?
I think there's some pieces that are pretty good.
Yeah.
The emergency savings piece, which we didn't even talk about.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Which allows for contributions to be put in for like a savings account up to $2,500 per year. So there are some pieces that I think will be really good to incentivize people to save.
Right.
I think that there are things that aren't necessarily going to turn the needle a whole lot, that didn't change a ton. But I don't see a massive change to the catch-up contributions. The qualified charitable distributions did change a little bit, but not a lot.
And they left that at 70.5, which is hilarious. They've never changed that number. You could still start doing QCDs if you're so charitably inclined. Once you turn 70.5, you could start sending what would be your RMD payments to charity. Yeah. So
overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I think that if you look at the two Secure Acts together, that's been a lot of good for retirees.
Yeah, it seemed like most advisors I would talk with, clearly the big sticking point they didn't like about the first one was the removal of the stretch IRA, right?
Right.
That doesn't seem to be one of the. I haven't had anybody say there's a big gotcha here yet on this one. So we'll see.
Yeah, not that we've seen. But, the stretch IRA removal was a big one.
Yeah.
But at the same point in time, that just changed the planning.
Right. And that's the point, right? So if you still try to strategize and plan, you can make this stuff work. So
what we saw with that is that life insurance became more vogue again.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
yeah. The concept of 75 for RMDs, when I think life expectancy for males is 78 maybe, and I think females is like 82 or somewhere in that neighborhood. So it's certainly interesting because it is a big complaint among retirees saying, hey, I got to take these RMDs and I don't need the money. What in the heck do I do with it, right? So it does give you some more time to strategize and figure out what you want to do. Maybe Roth conversions, it gives you more time if that's while the tax rates are low or whatever, right? So it just gives you more runway, as you said.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. So that's some Secure Act 2.0. A lot of minutia in there as well. There's still a lot of fine points and some things. So if you have questions, as always, make sure you reach out to Sean and the team to kind of drill that down, especially if you were turning 72 the next couple of months and you were expecting to do one. Again, you don't have to do one now until you actually turn 73, but double check, reach out to your financial professional and just make sure that you have all these, the I's dotted and the T's crossed. And the team can help you by just simply reaching out to them online at elevatemyretirement.com. That's elevatemyretirement.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, all that good stuff. Sean, thanks for hanging out, my friend, and have yourself a great week.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
We'll see you next time here on Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee.
Investment advisory services offered through Elevated Capital Advisors, LLC, and SEC Registered Investment Advisor.